Today on the show, we talk about X-Men Apocalypse, the future of the X-Men cinematic universe. We touched on Voltron, and somehow we hit on Fuller House. This is Nerdy Pop. Hey everyone, welcome to Nerdy Pop Episode 2. I am Matt Barnes, and with me again is my co-host and comic book legend, Rob Liefeld.
Yay.
Yay.
How you doing, Matt? How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm great.
We're doing this again, number
Very
2.
excited, very excited.
It's awesome.
As always.
As always, and we are set up here with a demonstration of our topic for the day.
Yes, the X-Men universe.
Yes, so we're going to be talking about X-Men Apocalypse and the X-Men cinematic universe and its future and the whole deal. But before we get into that, we want to do a bit that we call the Nerdy News. Last week or 2 weeks ago, Netflix released a season of Voltron Legendary Defender. Now, for me, Voltron was a huge part of my childhood. I know that it was probably...
Yeah, I was dating.
Yeah. I was... So just to give a little background, in first grade, I was 6 years old. I would get home from school every day, run in, watch Voltron, Defender of the Universe, and it was like my thing. And when at the end of my year of first grade, at the end of May, I remember I came home one night, we were sitting at the dinner table, and my parents looked at me and they said, Matt, we have some news. We would like you're the youngest kid in your class, we would like you to do first grade again. And I was like, what? You know, But before I could even react or anything, my dad goes, but if you'll trust us that this is the best thing, we will go out and get you the biggest Voltron toy there is. And I was like, done, sold, right?
Easy. Repeating first grade for Voltron.
Done. I totally, and I never even looked back.
Great.
It was like, got it, and that's it. I mean, that's not the exact one, but that's because I lost that a long time.
Vintage.
But I found that on eBay about 10 years ago. It's the exact same thing. And so Voltron has a very special place in my heart. They've rebooted it several times over the years with different versions of cartoons, and most of them have been kind of crap. So I was a little skeptical when DreamWorks was going to put out this new one on Netflix. I've watched the first 3 episodes, and I love it.
It looks really good.
It's really good.
I am not a Voltron guy, but what I saw looked fantastic.
Yeah, they took the best of what the old one was. It's a fascinating show because the original one was basically they took this show called Go Lion Force or something like that from Japan, brought it over here, took the whole season, picked out all the pieces they liked, rearranged them, made their own stories out of them, put American voices on them, and boom, they had their own show that was this own thing. So, but they took the best of that and they added in some more backstory and things that people would expect today, a little bit more kind of dynamics in the characters, but they kept some of the...
So comparing it from when you were 6 to now, how does it stand up?
It stands up great. Now, I haven't watched the original one in probably 5 or 6 years, so I don't have that fresh in my memory, but compared to that sense you get when you're a kid and you're watching something, it felt like that again.
So help me out. Voltron was Japanese animation,
and
it was transported here.
Somebody here, I think Saban or whoever, bought the rights to it, and then they just created their own version by mixing and matching scenes. Basically,
when I was a kid, see my version, I would have to wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning for a show called Battle of the Planets, which in Japan in the 70s was called Gotcha Man. And around this time with Voltron, my G.I. Joe, and I don't mind dating myself, was the guy with the kung fu grip and the eagle eye, and kids like, what? He was a giant doll, like our friend Apocalypse. They hadn't gone action micro figure yet. And I mean, there really was only one G.I. Joe. There was blonde hair and dark hair, but it was all the same doll. And and my sister, who is quite older than me, she's like, "Oh, you're playing with your dolls again." I'm like, "Oh." But with Voltron and the Transformers, see, the first time I interacted with Transformers, even though I've worked in comics for 29 years, was when we went and saw the 2007 Michael Bay movie. And I always sit there and go, these movies are awesome. And everyone I read online, these are a huge defeat for the Transformers brand. And the hardcore Transformers like decry the Bay universe. And I'm like, when's the next one? But that's great. Seriously, everything I've seen from this Voltron, last Friday I was going to watch it, ran out of time. Netflix Netflix is awesome. They have all the cool stuff.
They really do, and they did it. They did a great job. They teamed with DreamWorks on it. There's a few like catchphrase type things that they didn't include, which I was kind of surprised. But overall, I'm 3 episodes in. I'm really loving it. The first episode was like an hour and a half kind of mini movie to get started, and then 2 episodes after that. Really loved it.
Well, I would be remiss. All my friends at Fox and on the Deadpool movie would be mad that I didn't drop that. Voltron is name dropped in the Deadpool movie.
It is, and I was
kids,
so
you can't
excited
see
about
it.
that.
Kids, you can't see that. It's an R-rated movie, and you can't go see that, or you could. It's out on Blu-ray now. But he does the whole digital. He mentions Voltron several times through the movie, in the beginning and the end.
And you can go on, I believe it's Voltron.com. You can buy that ring.
The
ring that he has in the movie. I saw it. I was like,
Matt,
but it's like $60. I was like, I don't know.
This is why I come do the show. I now have so much more knowledge.
See, there you go.
I have more knowledge, and I'll have a ring soon. My addition to nerdy news, and I told you this, and you didn't believe this, and I had to look it up, and Fuller House, staying with Netflix. Now you're like, why? I didn't watch this nerdy pop show to hear about Fuller House, but this is how it pertains.
We're going to do a full review of Fuller House.
This is how it pertains to sci-fi pop culture. Last week, the Symphony Advanced Media, so we could abbreviate SAM, but Symphony Advanced Media released data. This is a big-time ratings number cruncher that Fuller House got bigger ratings than The Walking Dead and Sunday Night Football.
That ain't
right. So the headline is Fuller House beats Walking Dead. And you understand, in my house right now, my son, 16, is binging Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And my daughter, God bless her, told me when she was 11, which was only 6 months ago, Dad, we're watching Fuller House when it comes on. And I was like, okay, again, missed Full House. That's in the Voltron era. Again, the minute you're 6, I'm 16, I'm like, girls, and you leave your toys behind for a little while before you come back to them. But the thing is not too long. No, it's never too long. But the thing is that my daughter dragged me into this, and I was happy to sample it.
Yeah.
And she loved it. It's her. I think there's clearly 15 million girls making Candace Cameron like a powerhouse. And honestly, who knew that Candace would outdo her brother? Like, Kirk, you're a sidebar. The Cameron. The Cameron that is going to be in the history books is Candace Cameron.
Well, she went back to what worked for her.
She did.
And he went and tried to do Left Behind.
That
didn't work.
Love the Lord, not the Left Behind.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's nerdy news. We got Netflix. Both of them didn't plan that.
Yeah.
But so Fuller House bigger than Walking Dead.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
So now they have to do some mashup where Candace and the girls from Full House battle zombies in the apocalypse.
I think that's
maybe that's a big idea.
Trademark it.
Yep,
now.
I think we should definitely.
And I want to do at some point. I want to do an episode where we talk about the Marvel shows on Netflix because I think they're fascinating. They're interesting.
They're fantastic.
We will get to that at some other point. All right, so we want to get to our main topic of the day, which is X-Men Apocalypse and the future of the X-Men cinematic universe. Now, I saw X-Men Apocalypse last week. Okay. I know you saw it twice on opening weekend. I think. Yep. And there's a lot of sort of disparate views on X-Men Apocalypse out there. I think it had like
honestly, to be honest, there's disparate views on everything nowadays.
Oh, of course.
But yes, Apocalypse has seemed to have struck a chord.
Yeah, I think it had like a 48% Rotten Tomatoes.
I don't like Rotten Tomatoes, but go ahead.
I know, but it's an interesting thing to see. I actually when I look at Rotten Tomatoes, I look more at what the consumer view or whatever they call it than the critic view. But I saw it. I enjoyed it.
Okay.
I definitely felt like there were some things about it. Oh, there is Apocalypse.
This is Apocalypse. So if we're going to talk about him, I'm going to hold him.
You should.
Go ahead. And be prepared for justice or consequences. He's going to raise this. Okay.
Right.
All right. Go ahead. Tell Apocalypse what you thought.
You didn't look like that. That was one thing. I did enjoy it. It was fun. It felt a little bit long. It felt there were parts that felt a little disjointed. I felt like, and by the way, on this show there will be spoilers, so we're just talking about things here. So
come on, people, go see these movies before we talk about them.
Right, exactly. So the whole sequence to me that took me out of it, that made me feel like it didn't fit, was the whole Alkali Lake scene. sequence.
Okay.
It felt like it was jammed in the middle so that they could get Wolverine into it.
Okay.
And it almost made me feel like was that a reshoots thing so we could cram Hugh Jackman in, especially because there was no indication that Hugh Jackman was going to be in the movie until that last trailer that popped up kind of almost last minute and was like, oh. And it, did the claws thing. Like I said,
you're saying that took you out of the movie?
It didn't. I wouldn't say it took me out of the movie, but it definitely distracted me because I'm like, where are we going? And then it was back to it.
I really believe that is one of the film's saving graces. Is that sequence? I think it united it. I think without that sequence, the movie would have a much different. I think a much different reception. I think the people who really liked it, that's probably a key scene for them, because, like you said, Wolverine is the X-Men.
Right.
He's appeared in every single one of the X-Men films, even if it's for 60 seconds, like First Class.
Right.
But I think Apocalypse.
That was a great use of Wolverine in that.
It was, but it's like, some guy was arguing with me online because I said, well, the thing about X-Men Apocalypse is it has the absence of Hugh Jackman. He did not promote it. Mm-hmm. He is not in the ads. And some guy goes, yeah, he was in the ads. His claws. I'm like, that does not count
that is
as
not
Hugh Jackman's face.
That is a hand.
And again, actors do that sometimes. They agree that, like, okay, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to do this 5-minute bit or 3-minute cameo, but I'm not going to promote the movie. You can't use me to sell it. Hugh is definitely, from everything I read, and you can see he's so invested in Wolverine, the final Wolverine movie. But I think that, and for me, that sequence, which comes from a comic book that was very famous called Weapon X by a very famous illustrator named Barry Windsor Smith. That sequence was, I think, like their fan service. I think that's what they call now when you go out of your way and do something specifically to tickle the fans.
I thought it was well done. Yeah. It just felt like in the sequence of the movie, like, wait, now we're over here, and then, we're back. And it was, and I know, with the post-credit sequence, they use that to set up the whole Mr. Sinister thing for the next movie, which I'm assuming is going to be the next movie, if they do another movie, which I don't know. But overall, I enjoyed it. It felt a little, just a little kind of. It could have been tightened up in spots.
Length is a big deal to me, and again, I hate being the Deadpool homer. But when I first saw Deadpool, the first cut, like last year, I was like, "This is great. It's so short." I am getting really tired of the long movies. Yeah, I think the smaller, the better. Yeah, and the more you draw it out nowadays. And I also think, again, as a dad of 3 teenagers, attention spans are harder to focus than ever because their tablets and their, everything they've got and video games and there's so many distractions. And I just don't understand these bloated movies. Batman vs. Superman did not need to be 2.5 hours.
And now there's a bigger, longer version out.
Yeah, no thanks. But I agree with you. Apocalypse, anything that clocks in over 2 hours, so anything. And I liked Apocalypse. Yeah. I really enjoyed the opening in Egypt. I love that kind of stuff. Egypt is whether it's Stargate, Apocalypse, anytime they tap ancient Egypt, it's so weird. And even since Apocalypse opened, one of the pharaohs was buried with a blade. This is real world stuff. Was buried with a blade that they now say was forged out of meteorite stone. And you go, okay, I'd like to know that story.
Right.
And I think that it's great stuff.
That's why it's so rich. Is whether it, like you said, like Stargate or whatever. It's like there's such mystery there that it's like you can kind of fill in the blanks and make some fun stories out of it, and which they did, and I did enjoy that. But yeah, overall, it wasn't my favorite X-Men movie.
What is your favorite X-Men movie?
It's funny because I would have said Days of Future Past probably a month ago, and then I realized, because I was thinking about that before this came out, and I realized I haven't seen that since the theaters, so I watched it again, and I enjoyed it, but not as much as I thought I would. Okay. I liked First Class a lot.
It's a great movie. That's probably the best one.
Yeah, I still love the first one. I still love X2 because I feel like they were, there was nothing like them at that time. That was, those were pioneering.
People don't give. I'll be honest. Bryan Singer deserves a ton of credit for breaking through, having been in the comic book business and having friends in the movie business and having people consider my comic books for movies at the turn of the century, late '90s. Yeah. Early 2000s, Hollywood, once Batman and Robin came out and tanked with Schwarzenegger and that entire, George Clooney, they literally, Hollywood was like, everything was defined by Batman. Even 10 years earlier when Image Comics was launched, and I had a book called Youngblood, which was a big hit, and a bunch of producers called me in, and I didn't do a deal with them because they kept referencing Batman, and I'm like, I see comic books like as if they were done by James Cameron. That's what I'm trying to do on the page. And you're selling me Tim Burton, which it doesn't match up. And you know, I just put it back in the briefcase and said, this isn't the time. They don't know how to do these. With X-Men, because there was 2-3 years, they'd been developing X-Men, but nothing was getting made.
Right.
None of the studios were making superheroes. They made X-Men, they made it very cheap.
Yeah.
I think maybe $75 million for the day, which, you know, was considered a small budget for a team of superheroes. And if you go back, because again, I hate when people go, oh, that movie sucks, but you go, wait, what's the context that it was made in?
Sure.
Like, I can watch Beneath the Planet of the Apes, and now I can see, because I've watched all the documentaries, I've watched all the behind the scenes, and I can see in the tribunal that there's people wearing hollowed out monkey masks because they couldn't afford the nice rubber ones. And they sat them in the very back. But now with HD, you're like, oh my gosh, those are like paper masks. Yeah. They're wearing paper monkey masks. And they're going, and you go, you know, but that was the 60s, people. Yeah. We can't judge that movie. You know, my sons will get all, oh, I want to pontificate on this. Shut up. It was made in, if you can do better in 1967, step forward. Okay, but the first X-Men with that large cast, and again, I go back to the thing that the X-Men have always had going for them cinematically is Singer has cast them wonderfully. Yeah. From Patrick Stewart to the original Halle Berry was a great cast for the time, and Ian McKellen as Magneto. I mean, and then Hugh Jackman. And people forget. Yeah. And if you didn't know this, you can go, Uncle Robbie's going to teach you right now that the guy who was supposed to be Wolverine was the bad guy in Mission Impossible 2. Yes. His name's Dougray Scott. Dougray. And Mission Impossible had to go do reshoots. So he lost out on Wolverine. I was like, Wolverine is gone. Fox scrambles to replace him. Yeah. And this song and dance man shows up. And he's fantastic. Yeah. But anyway, given that, you know, worldwide, again, the world and globally, these movies are now so dependent on that money that comes in. And I was checking before we did this. Currently, Apocalypse is the third biggest X-Men movie. Okay. And Fox doesn't care if the money's from Scotland or Japan or Australia or America. Yeah. It's the grosses are coming in. Hey, we made some money. Fox is really good. They budget these things very wisely. You never hear of, they're running over budget on the X-Men. Right. Having dealt with Fox, I know how very smart they are with how they finance these movies. And look, the future's bright for the X-Men universe. You keep hearing about all their future plans. Yeah. And as we said, Wolverine, I'm pretty certain we're never going to see him in his classic costume. No. I don't think that yellow and blue is going to happen for Hugh. But this is back when I got into toys again in my 20s. Weird. But
that's we were talking earlier about, like, my introduction to X-Men was the X-Men animated show in the 90s. Yes. Which was that guy, you know.
Matt, that show was like #1.
It was amazing.
It was so you watched that as a kid.
Oh yeah, and that's how I mean the first character that you created that I'm familiar with is Cable, and that's from that show. Yes. I mean, I didn't know that was you at the time.
And he actually fought Apocalypse in the cartoon.
Okay, yeah.
They were in a couple of storylines. Yeah. No, people forget that is Marvel prepared the world for their cinematic universe by owning Saturday mornings for about a decade in the 90s. Right. Spider-Man, the X-Men. X-Men was their #1 show. It was only eclipsed eventually when Power Rangers blew up. Right. But then they had them back to back. Fox was like the place. Yeah. So you came into all these characters through the cartoon.
The ones that were, in the cartoon, because most Deadpool wasn't obviously, but Cable.
One episode he was in briefly.
Was he?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but he's actually character is appearing as him, and then it's a facade.
Did they
have
to bleep him or?
No. Yeah, Fox.
Saturday morning cartoon.
R-rated Deadpool, not happening.
Okay, but you enjoyed the movie.
I enjoyed it because, again, I'm going to get back to the casting. When they did First Class. Yeah. And here's the other thing about the X-Men: they take greater risks than I think that they are given credit for. I remember my buddies from Marvel. Now Marvel, there's Marvel Disney, and there's Marvel Fox, and there's Marvel Sony, but Marvel Disney is Marvel proper. Right. And they're very competitive. And if I've had drinks and dinners, and these guys are my friends, I've known them all for the better part of 30 years. Yeah. And I remember when First Class was coming out, they're like, that movie's gonna tank? It's in the 60s? Who makes a superhero movie in the 60s? Oh, they're way off. And it's like, period, X-Men, that's never going to work. And you know what? It did well. Yeah. But again, Wolverine was in a 30-second little brief scene. Cameo. And again, it was introducing the world to Michael Fassbender's Magneto and McAvoy and Jennifer Lawrence. I mean, whoever cast her should get a bonus every year. Like, thank you for putting Katniss in the X-Men because, I'm surprised and now that the Hunger Games is over, I believe we'll see Jennifer Lawrence again. That is, I have no concrete proof.
Well, she's sort of changed her tune lately.
She did.
She did. Last summer she was saying, I'm done. And then lately it's been like, maybe I'll do another one.
It's a greater debate of last week they broke the news that Brie Larson was in the running for Captain Marvel. Which is a Disney Marvel movie. And I remember seeing people like, why are these Oscar winners all doing Marvel films?
Right.
And look, the truth of the matter, and it's out there, it's very obvious, is they have a showcase, a guaranteed showcase every few years.
Yeah.
And I really want to make it about the showcase because having friends who are actors and directors and producers, everyone ties into the money. It's not about the money. These people just want to know that they have work and that they can perform and act. And I remember, Bruce Willis, when he made Die Hard.
Yeah.
And suddenly he wasn't the moonlighting guy anymore. Now he was the new face of action.
Yeah.
And Die Hard 2 and Die Hard 3 and movies that were like Die Hard that weren't called Die Hard, that he was clearly playing his Die Hard character in. But it was on the Mississippi River or whatever that movie was. With Sarah Jessica Parker. I'm going to remember that. But it's out there, people. But I'm just telling you that, Jennifer Lawrence, Brie Larson, it's great to have a showcase that they know this it'll be there for me because it works. People buy tickets to see me as this character. And I just think that whoever cast First Class, again, going back to 2000 when they cast, or before that, X-Men. I mean, these movies, Michael Fassbender is a huge draw.
Yeah.
Not for Patty Liefeld, but you got to go Hugh Jackman there for my mom. But Jennifer Lawrence, I mean, she's become the biggest female star, and I think Fox is like, oh yeah, we got her.
I think, and just as you're talking, one of the things that I think I was a little let down by in the movie was just, it's the first one, well, not the first one, I guess, but where I was like, I loved in the last one where you had the original cast and
that was great.
And so I
probably more expensive.
Yeah, of course it was more expensive. But yeah, I was like, I miss Patrick Stewart and I miss Ian McKellen.
Sure.
I definitely miss that. But I like these guys. But I also, and it was funny. There was one shot where Magneto's like rising up, and from a distance, and I'm like, that looks like Ian McKellen. Like I was like, oh no, like lost myself for a second. But
he's also said that he would come back too. So I mean,
and Patrick Stewart, I think, is doing the Wolverine movie.
Yeah, no, he is, which is great. There's been a lot of speculation as to what the new Wolverine movie is about.
Yes.
And could you hand me that wonderful, without knocking over those action figures? Oh, fantastic. This is the death of Wolverine. It was a huge storyline out 2 years ago. And he is still not back in the Marvel Universe. They offed him, and he has not been back since. I won't spoil the ending of the book, so you'll have to find out what happened to him. But he's
Does the title give it away?
Gone. Well, it's interesting. You can be the death of. You can be the death of. But how is the death of?
Right.
So I don't want to give that away.
Yeah.
But so anyway, the early set photos. And you know what? I don't ask any of my buddies at Fox. I don't ask because I'll tell you the one thing Fox does really good is they lock down their info. Disney likes it out there.
Yeah.
They like to. We're casting this guy in months in advance. Fox will hold it much closer to the vest, and so I respect them for doing that. But the early shots that have been released for whatever they're calling it, because they haven't technically called it.
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman looks exactly like this, people. If you go online and see the photos that are leaked, he has this is how he looks, the full beard, the open tie. I mean, again, you've got the open tie right here, this look. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is exactly, Hugh Jackman has got the dark jacket, the undone bow tie, and I'm like, they've got to be lifting some bits.
Yeah.
But here's the great thing, because Fox does this too, and they did it with Apocalypse, is Xavier's not in this. He's not, and some of the other characters that they're rumored to be in this. So Fox generally, and they can do this, is take a history of comics and go, we're going to put this. That's what they did with Deadpool.
Marvel's doing the same thing.
They did. Civil War is a little different, but it's more faithful than, say, like Deadpool really was the writers came up with a great story that did not exist in the comics. And that's why I would always be like, you wrote the best Deadpool story. And they're like, stop slobbering on us. But, it is. It's the best. I'm like, I tell them, these characters, Vanessa, Wade, I never did them this well. You owned them. I mean, and for the rest of their lives, people will know them. So then they've got Wolverine they're filming right now.
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman is filming. And there's a movie called The New Mutants that I think the director of, he did that tearjerker young adult movie. The Fault in Our Stars, I think it might have been.
Oh, yeah.
His name's Josh Boone, really cool guy. He has been working the internet. He always shows the comics he's reading, the era of New Mutants. And New Mutants is a book I actually took over and then ended in favor of creating X-Force.
Oh, right.
Which was the transition, because at the time the book wasn't doing as well. It was lagging behind Wolverine in the traditional X-Men book. But prior to that, the earlier stuff in the early 80s, I took over in the late 80s. But the early New Mutant stuff, there are some great mutant characters. I am going to say this. The X-Men has a deeper bench than anything that Marvel owns.
Really?
The Avengers is not, it's nowhere near as deep. Matt, the stuff that they can do, like that cartoon. Between the comics and the cartoon, they've showcased so much. The X-Men have spent years in space, but we've never ever seen them leave the planet, because I mean there are so many crazy adventures that they have.
So do you think, because like I know, like I talked to some friends who are like really big comic book people, and they still have their complaints about X-Men 1 and because well, you know, they this isn't true and this isn't the way it was. But there was a lot. I always say to them, you know, well, this was a new thing. I think if they were starting X-Men from scratch today, they would be able to do a lot more, because the landscape's so different.
Right.
They had to make it more palatable to a general audience. They had to tone things down. If they did do it today, would Rogue fly? Probably.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? That
Right.
kind of thing.
That's a
So do you think though that what you're talking about is this expansive thing? Do you think that they're a little bit hampered now because they had to make those creative decisions back in 99?
No, with X-Men Days of Future Past, it gave them the reboot.
Right.
Again, because like you said, they go and now you've seen Wolverine under Stryker's care in a completely new light in that movie.
Yeah.
And people go, oh, the timeline, screwy. Hey man, Deadpool said it the best. Which timeline?
Oh my gosh.
McAvoy.
My favorite line in that movie. And so many people missed that line.
Yeah,
but
people are roaring with laughter.
Oh, because they're already laughing at the last. But every time I'm like, that is the funniest.
It is the best line. But I really think that they've, look, Colossus. I would tell Tim Miller is a wonderful guy, buddy of mine. Obviously the director of Deadpool, hardcore comic book fan. But when I first saw it, and afterwards he said, "Rob, what do you think?" I said, "Okay, first of all, fans are going to love the depiction of Colossus. Colossus has never been serviced in this way. He's been in, I think, all total prior to that, 4 minutes of an X-Men movie.
Background.
And I said, Tim, seeing him in action, which he's really never thrown a punch in the movies prior to that. I guess in Days of Future Past, he threw 2 punches.
Yeah.
But this is like extended Colossus exposure. And here's a funny thing. Here is my copy of giant size X. This is where it all started.
Yeah.
1975, off the rack at the liquor store that I wasn't supposed to go to buy comics, but Mom and Dad, it was too irresistible. I had to go. They had all the best deals. They got stuff that the 7-Eleven didn't. See, I'm still guilty about it. Son, my Baptist minister father forbid me from going to the liquor store, and I went to the liquor store to buy comics.
We'll take confession later.
Yeah, exactly. But so here's the deal. The guy who wrote Giant Size X-Men #1, his name is Len Wein, still with us today. Hi, Len, you're awesome. He did an interview that I was reading from the 90s, and Colossus, if you look at like the first 6 issues of X-Men, he is the key figure on every cover. And Len says, we actually designed Colossus to be the star of the book. He said that's why he's in primary colors, blue, red, yellow, and he said, but Wolverine, the fans took to him and he rose, and he said that's why you'll see the covers shifted to Wolverine. But Colossus has always been a strong character, and I think when you see what they did with Colossus and the character in New Mutants that is his like sidekick, Negasonic.
Yeah.
Negasonic.
Oh my gosh.
I think that's where you're going to see the doorway open to this, I think, group of Deadpool films.
Yeah. Which
I cannot speak of Deadpool 2.
Sure.
I just know that it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And Fox is always threatening me that they always tell me, Rob, and our ninjas are watching you at all times. and then I'm stupid enough to go on something like this and say, oh, Deadpool 2. But that's all I'm saying. Deadpool 2, gonna be good. But I think there's going to be more of, they really saw how well that was received. And
obviously.
And there is a whole, I think, again, that opens a door to, I'd say, 30 more characters over the next decade that you could be introduced to. And then the New Mutants with somebody like Josh Boone. So you've got Josh Boone, the Wolverine movie, who the director's great, escapes me right now, but you got a lot of different voices on these X-Men films.
Yeah.
And like I said, their bench is deeper.
Yeah.
They have so many more characters that the fans love. Where with the Avengers, it's always Thor, Cap, Iron Man. They are the, and I'm a fan of all of it. But it's funny how you talk about how X-Men fans are like, but Rogue doesn't do this, but but in the comics, Captain America doesn't give Falcon his tech from S.H.I.E.L.D. and make metal wings.
Right.
That's not the Falcon I grew up with had a bird he talked to, and he's like, But here's what I found with fans: if Disney does it, it's awesome. If Fox or Sony does it, I object. I object.
Yeah.
And Devin Faraci, who writes for Birth, Death Movies, wrote a great thing about fan outrage. And I mean, that's the culture we live in now.
Sure.
And the X-Men have taken it on the chin a couple times over fan outrage. But again, between New Mutants, the new Wolverine, Deadpool 2, which is coming, and again, another X-Men movie. They didn't cast that. They clearly love the Game of Thrones cast too. Because you got Sansa, and the last movie you had Tyrion. Yeah. And there are rumors that there are other Game of Thrones cast members being looked at for characters in the New Mutants.
Well, it seems just smart. Game of Thrones is kind of. It's not as big
really
as
smart.
Fuller House, but
no, that's it. Candace Cameron is. Candace, we're fans. We're fans.
Yeah.
So
if Candace wants to come on the show,
we'll Candace, it's out there for you. I know you're going to make your room on your calendar because we said you're better than Kirk. But anyway, I think we've just talked 3 or 4 films. That's 3 or 4 more years of releases. I mean, Wolverine is out March 7th. I mean, so we're
next year.
Next year, 2017.
Yep.
So they're going to keep rolling these. Also, I read where some of these movies aren't going to be in the summer anymore. Okay. Which look. You can see whether you like Batman vs Superman or not. It opened to like $190 million in March. Yeah, I think it's get these movies out of summer. Not everything is a summer movie.
Yeah, I think the traditional sort of way things were is sort of being destroyed because the amount of content now is allowing them to spread it out where people they don't care when it.
And we would be. I know it's television, not movie, but there is a character named Legion in the New Mutants. Yes. Who is Charles Xavier's son, and the reason they call him Legion, and again, Chris Claremont, who went on to write all the classics. He created Legion, and Legion is a schizophrenic mutant, so he has multiple personalities, and he was very scary in the comics. But the guy who did Fargo, which is an awesome show, they've already filmed Legion, and I think they announced
it's a TV show, right?
TV show on FX. Yeah. FX. So Fox, FX, Synergy.
Yep.
So we got tons of mutants. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm going to be 60 years old and watching the 15th, 16th, 17th, X-Men movie. This one was 9. Matt, when I was hired, there was already 5 X-Men books, and I was hired 27 years ago. Yeah. And since then, they went to like 10 X-Men books. Yeah. So considering they've really only played with one X-Men, Wolverine, and now Deadpool, you can really expand.
There's a lot of room.
So Matt, we did it again.
We did.
We did it. We talked nerdy pop culture stuff.
Okay, this week we want to do something new. Well, it's new. It's only our 2nd episode, so everything's new. But anyway, we want to do a fun Rob Liefeld exclusive giveaway on our website. So what do we have here?
What is our website?
Our website is nerdypopshow.com.
Nerdypopshow.com.
Yes.
So Marvel has me do variants quite often lately, and this one though is a 1 in 100 variant, which means your comic book retailer would have to order 100 comics to qualify to get this one book. They made it very difficult for retailers to get it. That's why it's so rare and hot. And we're offering it here on our website at nerdypopshow.com.
And we were looking online. They're going for good money, and there's no signed
ones
online.
$150.
This one's actually signed.
Yes, this is signed. And so far, none of the ones I've found online have my signature because I can guarantee you I did not sign them. So there you go.
And he would know. So anyway, and you can follow us online. Visit our website, like we said, www.nerdypopshow.com. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at nerdypopshow. And you can follow me at Matthew Barnes, Twitter and Instagram. Rob is?
Robert Liefeld at Twitter, at Robert Liefeld. You got to do the whole thing, Robert. And and then on Instagram, I'm Rob Liefeld. They didn't get me first on that, so I was able to get that name. So.
Excellent.
Yes.
All right, so join us next week. We'll be back to talk about, I don't know what we're talking about next week.
We better figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
We got some time. There's always something.
There's always something. We'll be talking about something. Join us. We'll see you later.
Thank you.